In my recent video essay, A Shadow of Your Former Self, breaking down Ellie's descent into darkness and how I related to her journey, I briefly touched on Seattle, where most of the story takes place, being its own character in the story with its own arc. I've said that Ellie wasn't welcome in Seattle. While on her way to the hospital, it feels like the city itself is trying to stop her multiple times from getting there, throwing her into the flooded tunnels of the sewer system. And finally, it's visually distinct with its gloomy streets and raging rivers, but it also has its own personality and reacts to the events taking place within its borders. As Ellie's story gets darker, so does the sky, and as her mental state begins to break down, a historic storm rolls in just as angry and turbulent as she is. Throughout her 3 days in Seattle, the city itself tests Ellie, throwing everything it's got in her way to halt her journey, as if the city is trying to say, "You are not welcome here. You are out of your depth, and you should turn around before it's too late." She's literally trespassing in a closed ecosystem, and it pulls out all the stops to eject the foreign body. During Abby's section, we see more of the city's ability to chew up and spit out anyone who isn't tough enough for her streets. Through the story's descents into the darkest depths of Seattle's underbelly, we come to learn that the city itself is alive and breeding. The near constant rainfall is probably a massive reason for the Shambler's existence. The later stages of the cordyceps evolution has adapted to the damp and spurted them out, bloated and oozing like a waterlogged corpse. On Outbreak Day, the hospital acted as Seattle's ground zero.
There's a reason we haven't touched this area yet. It was ground zero for the whole city, where they brought the first infected before anyone knew better. It's gonna be overgrown to shit.
Awesome.
Some of the doctors locked a dozen or so infected patients behind a sturdy door, and they were left there to turn in the dark.
The fuck is that?
One by one they changed and embraced, fusing into a single mass, a wall of flesh. And there they sat, gestating in Seattle's womb, and 25 years after their conception, the city gives birth to its prototype malignant answer to evolution. The cordyceps has tried its hand at community. If humans succeeded by coming together, then nature will too. Seattle is now the mother of the next phase of the cordyceps' journey to becoming the final perfect life form on Earth. The Rat King, an oozing, hulking mound of shambling flesh and armored fungus. Nature's masterpiece. The city of Seattle is definitely a victim of humanity's affinity for violence. Fedra came in and walled the city off in the early days of the infection. But their totalitarian regime didn't work for the locals, and thus the WLF rose from the depths and gave the people of Seattle an outlet for their darkest desires. They sacked the city and overthrew Fedra, installing an even more violent regime in its place.
Fedra soldiers. Check out that wall. They were executed.
Jesus. They weren't just executed. He shot them to pieces.
Maybe bullets weren't scarce yet. Maybe they deserved it.
Maybe.
And eventually, when they were ready, the group that had formed on the island off the shore of Seattle, formerly a neighborhood of Seattle before constant flooding isolated it, came to shore to spread the word of their leader. One way or another, though, she was killed, and thus began a twisted religion in her place, taking her teachings and twisting them for their own desires. And year by year, the Seraphites lost their original meaning for their existence, and the power struggle for Seattle began again. The never-ending cycle of violence is an integral theme in The Last of Us Part 2's story, but it's also inextricably woven into the history of the city of Seattle. Much like Bilbo said when he entered Mirkwood.
This forest feels sick, as if a disease lies upon it.
The city of Seattle still bears the anger of its history. It feels angry, it feels sick. I truly believe that knowing what happened within a house's walls is what makes it feel haunted. If you knew a murder took place many years ago, you'd bet your ass the walls would feel like they're still dripping with the residue of history. We'll revisit the Seraphites in the video about Abby's story, In the Belly of the Beast. So to wrap this up, I think that Seattle is my favourite character in The Last of Us Part 2. On the surface, it just looks like another overgrown city, but it hides some dark secrets. If you walk through those gates, be prepared for them to slam behind you and be swallowed by Seattle's malice. Absolutely incredible world building. A real setting as the antagonist. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.